This neighbors bring over some food for Thomas's family, and our boy cannot believe his eyes meet soup again, a whole pot of it looking absolutely divine. Turns out it is his asterisk meat soup, a meal he has not had in a month after a grateful goodbye to their kind neighbor. Night falls over the small village, but someone is not sleeping so peacefully as our MC is having a rough night. He is still thinking about that precious protein and how different he is from the other kids here. This tiny village only has a handful of children, a stark contrast to the big adventure cities out there, where meat is apparently a common thing on the market. Back home, their usual meal is a lot more humble. He knows the village men risk their lives hunting, a group that includes his own father Thomas. Frustrated, he feels completely useless at just 8 years old, while his brother Jimmy sleeps without a care, looking perfectly content in his dreams. He quietly tucks him in, thinking Jimmy is pretty great. He thinks about the other kids training with an ex-adventurer, never complaining despite the hunger. Meanwhile, our boy is wide awake, his mind racing. He is dead set on finding a new protein source for the village, and he is already working on it. He remembers the old adventurer mentioning that low-level grunts are always poor. So instead of dried meat, they carry asterisk something else for rations. At the time, he was totally confused by what that meant. This old-timer just laughed it off as a good snack, which horrified the other kid. Now that memory gives him an idea and he slips out of the house. He's got a look of pure mad scientist determination on his face. Heading straight for a covered barrel, he is hidden in the woods. He lifts the lid to check on his little protein farm, trying to figure out the best bait to use. He gives a crazy grin to whatever's inside, promising to make them delicious. But just then, a sharp pain lances through his head, and in a completely different place, a bandaged young man wakes up reaching for a smartphone. He immediately stops, confused by his own thoughts. What even is a smartphone? Sitting up, he looks around the unfamiliar room, completely bewildered. He has no idea where he is or how he ended up in this bed. His head throbs with another wave of intense pain, and he struggles to remember what could have possibly happened to him. A woman's voice calls out for Jake as the door opens, and our boy looks up, totally confused by the name. It is a woman crying with relief that he is finally awake. She rushes in for a massive hug, saying how worried she was, which is a little too enthusiastic for his current state. She quickly apologizes for getting carried away, but as she looks at him, she seems to notice something's off, telling him to stay put for just a moment. She then casts a petite heal spell, a magic circle glowing in her hand, and brings the healing light right to his bandaged head. He is stunned to realize the headache is completely gone, so she immediately scolds him for climbing trees alone. With that out of the way, she tells him breakfast is ready, leaving him alone to process what just happened. He tries to piece it together. He was climbing a tree and fell, and a girl named Emily was there crying. But then a completely different memory flashes through his mind. A modern city street totally alien to this world. He rushes to the window to check his reality, confirming this world has no smartphones and he might not be from here at all, and it hits him, he has memories of a past life. This name Jake suddenly makes a whole lot more sense, flashing him back to a character select screen from a game he used to play. This connection is so jarring he can barely process it. So he immediately dashes out of the room, trying to confirm if he has really become that game character. He remembers the controller in his hands and how this was one of his favorite heroes to pick. He starts unwrapping the bandages, recalling the character's title, this legendary hero of the Orland Kingdom. His reflection confirms it, he is now red-haired Jake, and he is freaking out. Meanwhile, back in the woods, our original MC is still hard at work on his protein farm. Turns out his secret project is a bucket of giant, wriggling worms. He's even trying to figure out if different bait will change their taste, all for the glorious future of meat, even if it is making him hungrier right now. He heads back inside his own house, where his mom asks where he has been so early. She sets down some plates, calling him Kevin for the first time. Then she asks Kevin to go check on Jake, who was still unconscious last night. Kevin thinks it is a pain but agrees to go check on Jake after breakfast. He and his little brother are already pestering their mom for food. As a sleepy Jimmy stumbles into the room, also ready to eat, Kevin greets his brother, but his mind is clearly on other things. He is comparing sizes, noticing how huge Jimmy is for a 6-year-old. Even Jake is taller than him. As they sit down for their meal, he wonders if he is just abnormally small for this world. This just strengthens his resolve. He will get this village meat even if he has to farm it from worms. Meanwhile, Jake makes his way over to another house. A woman opens the door and it is Emily's mom. She asks how he is feeling after his accident, and Jake thanks her for the potion, saying Emily's quick thinking really helped. Her mom calls for Emily, who completely freezes up at the mention of his name. Turns out she was so worried she was about to go check on him herself. But now she's just hiding in embarrassment, so her mom apologizes for her shyness. She tells Jake to come over and play again anytime. He gives a friendly wave as he heads off. On his way, Jake sits down by a tree to process everything. There's one thing that has been nagging him since he woke up, a theory about this world that he needs to test right now. He holds out his hand and shouts the classic command, status open. He waits for the system window to pop up, but absolutely nothing happens. So he starts trying every command he can think of, which still gets him nowhere, sending him into a mild panic. He racks his brain for another way to do this, finally remembering the appraisal skill, and just like that the status window appears. Turns out appraisal was the key, revealing his name, skills, and magic affinities. He remembers the game's main quest involved getting the hero class at the capital, but he is still not sure how much this world actually follows the game's rules. One thing, however, is crystal clear. He is going for a full-on power gamer speedrun. He recalls that grinding weak mobs was the fastest way to level up, and even without visible stats, getting stronger is his #1 goal. His eyes lock onto his swordsmanship skill, immediately thinking of the perfect starter enemy, the classic slime. Since he has magic too, he figures it is time for a little field test. He is all healed up and ready to go, dashing off to the woods to hunt some slimes. Completely oblivious to Kevin watching him from the bushes. Kevin is just completely baffled by what he is seeing, since he'd gone to check on Jake, but his mom said he'd just missed him. Then on his way back, he spotted Jake out in the open, shouting status open like a total maniac. Jake looks way too happy about this whole thing, and from Kevin's perspective, he is just striking weird poses and yelling nonsense. He decides Jake must have hit his head way harder than anyone thought. Because this is definitely not the normal kid he used to know. This whole scene triggers a memory of his dad at a village party, where he first heard about something called hero's sickness. His dad called it a terrible disease that all boys catch at least once, and another villager immediately called his dad out for having a bad case of it himself. This guy Henry starts posing, bragging about how he was stronger back then, which just makes Kevin's dad super embarrassed. He explains to Kevin that this is what adults call a dark past, so Kevin concludes he just needs to watch over Jake until he snaps out of it. With that settled, he heads on home, where his mom asks him how Jake is doing. He lies, saying the potion worked great and Jake is totally fine now, while thinking that he is fine in one way but now has a whole new, very embarrassing problem. Back at Kevin's place, he grabs a basket and a bag to head out. Telling his mom he's going foraging while Jimmy takes the day off. He promises to be back by lunch and heads out the door. Kevin cannot help but compare himself to his brother, who is already training while he was just smacking slimes at that age. He remembers how harmless they are, basically just the forest's cleanup crew. He peeks around the corner, calling out for Jimmy, but his usual little bodyguard is nowhere in sight. Guessing he is down by the water, Kevin decides he will just have to go alone. Meanwhile, Jake has found his first official exp farm. He gives a nearby slime a tentative poke with a stick, then strikes a dramatic pose, declaring it the first step on his path to greatness. This slime just jiggles, completely unimpressed. With a mighty battle cry, Jake brings the stick down with all his might, and it just bounces right off the gelatinous blob. This stick goes flying out of his hands, a spectacular failure. He is left panting and defeated while the slime remains perfectly fine. Not one to give up, he winds up for another heroic attack, which once again does absolutely nothing. His determined yells echo through the woods, as he is forced to admit this starter mob is way stronger than he thought. As Jake vows this will not be the end for him, he is being watched from the trees, and it is none other than Kevin's little brother, Jimmy, who steps in and one-shots the slime with a single, clean strike. Jake is just completely speechless, staring at the perfectly sliced slime as Jimmy asks if he is okay. Jimmy thinks this whole slime-whacking thing looks fun and wants to join in, immediately slicing through another one with zero effort, showing off some seriously clean form. He is just happy to have a real target instead of practicing on air. Then he casually mentions he has been training with a sword since he was 5. This sends Jake into a full-on existential crisis, realizing he spent the last year just chasing butterflies with Emily, while these two brothers were out here grinding their skills from childhood. This humiliation is crushing. He is the protagonist and cannot even beat a level 1 mob. Jimmy points out that just remembering a past life does not magically make you strong. With his pride in tatters, Jake bows and asks the 6-year-old to teach him swordsmanship. He immediately gets to training, smacking another slime, then eagerly asks his new master for feedback on his swing. Jimmy actually gives him some solid advice, prompting Jake to call him master again. This makes Jimmy super uncomfortable, insisting they are just friends, but Jake is dead serious. Jimmy says Jake should also train under Master Bobby, who turns out to be a retired adventurer and the guy who teaches all the village kids swordsmanship. Jake's mind is blown, they are the same age. This just makes him even more fired up to train. He immediately begs Jimmy for an introduction, but the 6-year-old just flat out refuses, forcing Jake to get on his knees and plead. Jimmy finally caves, agreeing to train together tomorrow. Meanwhile, Kevin is fired up for his own mission. He is out foraging when he spots the two of them, wondering how Jake managed to befriend his little brother so fast. He figures it is fine since Jake looks happy, and decides to focus on his own task instead. He is looking for a specific healing herb, which has a nearly identical, useless lookalike since he could not tell the difference by sight. He ran an experiment and found something weird. This real herb actually transforms into the fake one, which is why no one has ever successfully farmed it. Kevin's theory is that the real and fake herbs are the same plant, which means the herb is basically just concentrated magic. It seems to absorb mana directly from the soil. Though he admits he is still in the early testing phase, he is confident continued observation will prove him right. So why is a kid this dedicated to botany? This answer is surprisingly simple. It is all for the sake of high-quality, delicious meat. This entire herb farming project is for big boar feed, because better feed means better bacon for the whole village. He'd rather keep this grand ambition to himself, though. Still, having a clear goal makes foraging way more fun. Just then, he hears a familiar sound nearby, and spots Jake and Jimmy still grinding on slimes. He calls out to get their attention, letting them know it is lunchtime and they are done for now. Jake is totally pumped for his official training tomorrow. Kevin tells the younger boys to head home while he cleans up, but he stops Jake for one last thing, placing a hand on his shoulder and sending a pulse of energy. Kevin gives Jake a knowing smile, telling him this is page one of his own dark past, which Jake completely misinterprets as encouragement and gets totally fired up. With the younger boys gone, Kevin gets back to his task, explaining that leaving slime remains out just attracts other monsters. He quickly dices up the leftovers to help them dissolve, even bagging a small piece noting its magical properties. Once the area is clean, he finally heads for home. His mind is already dreaming of one thing, a future feast of delicious meat. Elsewhere, his dad Henry has just finished a successful hunt with another villager, and they are celebrating bagging a massive horned rabbit. It is a huge catch and they know the kids will be thrilled. Later that night, his dad finally arrives home. Kevin sees the giant rabbit and is absolutely floored, immediately losing his mind over the promise of fresh steak for dinner. His dad explains that monster populations are on the rise, so they will have to hunt more often. For Kevin, this is the best news ever, even as his mom worries about the danger. Jimmy is also there, amazed that his dad took down a horned rabbit. Henry boasts it was a clean one-shot kill, but the meat still needs to be prepped. Kevin points out they need to bleed it fast before the meat spoils, since doing it in the forest is too risky. Jimmy then asks to watch the butchering, making Kevin wonder how his little brother can already identify weak points on sight. Kevin's dad is just floored that his 6-year-old is talking about bleeding out monsters. While Kevin, ever the pragmatist, notes the rabbit's pelt is in great condition and will sell high. He explains all the pelts are gathered by the village chief, making Jimmy wonder if the guy's a collector. Turns out the village pools the money from the pelts for the community's benefit. But Kevin knows the real system. The chief gives a cut to local officials to keep the village safe and stable. And this competent village chief is a former merchant who looks way less intimidating than he actually is. Suddenly, Jimmy grabs Kevin's arm, dragging him along to watch the butchering, completely hyped to learn. Their mom just watches on with a knowing smile, used to her kid's weird intensity. Later that night over at Jake's place, he proudly announces to his parents that he fought a slime. They are super supportive, asking how the epic battle against the level 1 mob went. With a dead serious face, Jake declares the slimes were powerful enemies. He spins a tale of how they dodged his attacks, admitting he could not win. For now, gripping his fork like a legendary sword, his resolve hardens, and he vows that one day he will one-shot those gelatinous menaces. His parents just stare, completely baffled by this sudden dramatic turn. They just assume he has come down with a classic case of hero syndrome. Jake then mentions that Jimmy showed up and was awesome, helping him fight. He reveals Jimmy trains with a retired adventurer named Bobby and immediately asks if he can go too. Jake slams the table, declaring he is going to become the strongest man alive, which gives his dad a sudden flashback to his own youth, where he apparently made the exact same cringy declaration. He just smiles at his wife, totally on board with this new development. Jake is ecstatic, promising his dad he will not quit halfway through. He chugs his soup, completely hyped to start his training arc tomorrow. His mom then gets a little twinkle in her eye, suggesting to her husband it might be time to work on giving Jake a sibling. This next morning, Kevin is still basking in the afterglow of that horned rabbit steak. It is a peaceful day in the village, and he is already dreaming of making that a regular meal. With his belly full, it is time to get back to his big worm research. He figures that even with a steady supply of rabbit, more food options are always good. Today's experiment involves the slime remains he bagged yesterday. His theory is that the big worms can eat the slime, which might purify them, so he offers the jiggly leftovers to his test subjects. As he is observing the results, he suddenly hears a noise nearby. It sounds an awful lot like someone is crying. And he finds none other than Emily, completely bawling her eyes out. Through her tears, she calls out his name for help. Kevin asks what is wrong, trying to handle the sudden emotional outburst. He walks her back towards the village to calm her down, and she finally manages to explain what happened yesterday. Apparently, Jake was supposed to visit her, but he completely ghosted her. Kevin immediately realizes Jake must be off training with Master Bobby, and explains that he and Jimmy started their swordsmanship lessons together. This news just makes Emily cry even harder, thinking she will not get to see him anymore. So Kevin confirms the obvious, she just wants to hang out with Jake, right? Then he drops a genius-level solution, she should just start training too. Her tears instantly vanish, replaced by a face full of pure, unadulterated hope. She thanks him like he just solved all her life's problems, and immediately sprints off to get her mom's permission to join the dojo. She is already thrilled at the thought of 3 6-year-olds learning the sword together. Kevin just smirks, realizing Bobby's house is basically turning into a daycare for tiny warriors. With his good deed for the day done, he gets back to his own grand ambition, the future of meat. 1 week later, the village is as peaceful as ever, and a new trio of trainees has officially formed. Jake is deep in concentration, practicing his swings with a wooden sword. Emily and Jimmy are right there with him, grinding out the reps. After a full week, Jake notes they're still just building their physical foundations. He is still just getting used to the wooden sword, and the basic swings are already wiping him out. But then he notices something about Emily. She is keeping up with him just fine, despite being a small 6-year-old girl. In fact, her swings are surprisingly powerful. He wonders if she has a swordsmanship skill too, so he decides to use his appraisal skill to check. A quick status check reveals the truth. She has staff arts and a skill called Strongman. He figures prayer is a classic party buff skill, but Strongman is a new one on him. It all clicks, that skill must be why she is so strong, basically making her a future battle healer. Emily herself is just happy to be there, telling Jake that she is having a lot of fun. He agrees, but his inner monologue is screaming that he cannot lose to a girl. Just then, Master Bobby calls an end to the session. He asks the kids if they are getting the hang of it, reminding them not to push too hard while they are still growing. This main rule is to speak up if they get hurt, which they all agree to. With that, Bobby calls the training session to a close, and the newly formed trio heads out together. Emily immediately grabs Jake's hand, asking what they should play now, which seems to catch him completely off guard. But then his battle spirit ignites. He wants a rematch with the slimes. He is still fired up after seeing Jimmy's one-shot kill, and both Emily and Jimmy are instantly on board with the plan, so it is settled. The slime hunt is on for this afternoon. Meanwhile, Kevin is busy with his own top-secret research, currently in the critical taste testing phase. He is in absolute heaven, thinking this sauce would be perfect with some white rice. A simple pleasure he desperately misses. He has to remind himself he is an 8-year-old, not a grown man having a culinary crisis. On his plate is the big worm meat purified by the slime remains. He takes a bite and is absolutely blown away. It is delicious. This purification worked perfectly, removing the awful smell and leaving only juicy goodness. It even gives him a slight rejuvenating feeling, almost like a minor healing spell. Our boy is just geeking out over the perfect umami flavor. He starts theorizing that the worm must have absorbed the slime's magical properties, remembering Bobby's old saying that stronger monsters make for tastier meat. He figures the rejuvenating effect comes from the monster's residual magic, and he is now officially hooked on the magical taste of monster ingredients. This only real hurdle left is convincing his mom to actually cook this stuff. So he hatches a plan, make jerky for his dad, then negotiate with the chief for salt. Perfecting big worm jerky would be a total game changer for their winter food supply. With his research paused, he remembers Jimmy mentioned going slime hunting this afternoon, so he heads out to the forest to see what is happening, and finds Jake going all out against a slime. Emily is right there with him, gleefully whacking another one. Kevin watches from the bushes, realizing they have formed their own little slime subjugation squad. And that gives him a brilliant, slightly exploitative idea. If they are going to be hunting slimes on the regular, they can just become his official suppliers for future experiments. Later, he is back home getting some tea from his mom, Miranda. She has made him some nice herbal tea, and he happily thanks her for the treat. Turns out she is actually thanking him for delivering a basket of medicinal herbs. She explains that she can trade 10 bundles of those herbs for a single potion. While she mentions how hard they are to gather, Kevin casually says he found a great new spot. He recalls that the area where he fought the slimes had an unusual amount of that healing grass growing. He connects the dots. Slime remains fertilize the ground, making the herbs grow like crazy. With this new knowledge, he waves goodbye to his mom and heads out on a mission. Turns out, he has already created a whole new village revenue stream with his herb gathering. His next target is the man at the top of that food chain, the village chief. Chief Drake is already singing his praises for the steady supply of medicinal herbs, so when the chief asks what he wants, Kevin is more than ready to make his pitch. He gets that classic "I have a brilliant, possibly evil plan" look on his face, and tells the chief he has come up with another great idea for the village. This chief is immediately hooked, asking for the details. After hearing the kid's proposal, the chief seems to be considering it. Kevin lays out a plan for a village-wide barter system using wooden tokens instead of cash. This chief admits it is a clever idea for internal trade, even if they still need real money. Internally, the chief is just stunned. An 8-year-old is negotiating economic policy. He cannot help but compare Kevin to his own son, who just begs for money for new toys. This kid, he thinks, is going to be something special. So he agrees to the plan, promising to sort out a supply of salt for him. Kevin walks off victorious, knowing that seasoning is the key to a better life. Back home, he immediately gets to work mixing the salt into a big tub of meat. He is already dreaming of thick-cut steaks and salt-cured jerky, carefully adding a little more water to perfect his recipe. He uses the water spell from his life magic to get the marinade just right. And he is just thrilled with how convenient these basic spells are. Since life magic is the one type anyone can use, aptitude or not, even a kid like him who has not had his official ceremony can pull it off, giving him access to tiny fire, light, and healing spells, a commoner's best friend. With the jerky prep done, he moves on to his next big idea, which involves pouring a bunch of mud into a wooden frame and tamping it down to get all the air bubbles out. Once the surface is perfectly flat, he hovers his hand over it and casts another life magic spell. Create block. Out pops a perfectly formed solid brick from the mold, and he holds up his creation looking incredibly pleased with himself. This system explains this is a basic earth spell for hardening soil, which makes Kevin wonder how he is using it without any earth aptitude. He's got a perfectly logical, slightly insane explanation ready. Because this too is all part of his grand plan for better meat. See, he realized he can do all the manual labor himself, and just use the create block spell for the final magical hardening step. This little loophole lets him mass-produce bricks at an absolutely absurd rate, and he has already built a mountain of them, more than enough for his project. His meat purification experiment was a massive success, but raising the worms in a simple bucket will not cut it for winter food stores. This only logical next step is to build a proper breeding facility, and our boy is more than happy to do the manual labor himself, having already dug out a massive foundation for his project. This question is, how did an 8-year-old dig a crater this big? By using a skill called magic weaving to reinforce his tools. Turns out he has been practicing this since he was a baby, mastering the technique by age 2 with a simple stick. He got so obsessed with it he'd just dig holes for fun, much to his mom's confusion. With the foundation ready, it is time to start laying the bricks. He carefully places each one along the edge, then uses his create block spell to fuse them together without mortar. This whole project is coming along surprisingly fast. Meanwhile, Jake is still grinding away at his own training, and after a month he can now take down slimes in just a few hits. He gathers up the remains, leaving them for Kevin to pick up later. With his daily quest complete, he sets his sword aside, but then he gets an idea and decides to use his appraisal skill. He's been so focused on swordsmanship, he completely forgot to check his magic aptitudes. Jake decides to test his newfound magic aptitude all by himself, immediately whipping out a fireball spell and sending it rocketing towards a nearby slime, which gets completely obliterated on impact. He is absolutely floored that it was a one-shot kill, so he decides to run through his other elemental aptitudes, starting with a solid earth ball, then a swift wind ball, and finally a blinding light ball. Every single spell is an instant one-shot, making him realize his month of sword training was maybe a little pointless. As he is basking in his own opness, he hears a rustle in the grass and turns to see what is coming. It is a slime, but this one is absolutely enormous. And Jake is understandably terrified. This is a big slime, a higher tier evolution, which has no business being near their quiet little village, but after a moment of panic, he tells himself to calm down. Realizing this is not a disaster, it is a chance. He sees this new monster as the next great challenge sent just for him. He declares this giant slime his new rival, the perfect stepping stone for his growth. This slime, for its part, just jiggles unimpressively. He starts gathering magic, ready to unleash his best shot. He screams out the name of his go-to spell, Fireball, sending it hurtling towards the giant slime, fully expecting another one-shot kill, except the slime just absorbs the spell and casually bounces it back. Jake is, understandably, completely stunned. His own spell comes flying right back at his face. Turns out, the slime reflected all his previous attacks at the same time. He is left completely floored, realizing none of his attacks even landed. He grits his teeth, convinced there has to be a weakness somewhere, but his body gives out and he faceplants right into the dirt. He has no idea what is happening to his body. He cannot get any strength into his limbs, realizing he is out of mana. He remembers how games have visible HP and MP bars to warn you about this sort of thing. But in this world, a moment of carelessness is all it takes to lose everything. He is paralyzed with fear, realizing he is about to get taken out for good. There are no continues in this world, the strong survive, and that is the only rule. He starts apologizing to his parents for being such a disappointing son, just as he remembers his dad's words about never running away halfway through. That memory of his dad's words snaps him right out of his despair, and with a final surge of willpower, he reaches for his wooden sword. He forces himself to his feet, screaming that he is not running away. Planting his feet firmly, he prepares for one last desperate charge, running headfirst at the giant slime with everything he has left. This is his all-or-nothing final stand, and then he is on the ground, with Kevin casually calling him an idiot for burning through his mana so recklessly. Meanwhile, Kevin's been busy finishing his massive worm-breeding facility. Turns out he was just coming to collect slime remains when he saw Jake popping off with 4 different elements. This big slime, for its part, just looks confused by all the drama. But Kevin recognizes it immediately, realizing it is an old friend. He casually asks if this is the same slime he has been practicing his water spell on, which kicks off a flashback to their long history together. See, at age 4, Kevin was bummed he could not use elemental magic, so he focused on the basic water life spell instead. He practiced so hard he'd pass out from mana exhaustion, much to his mom's concern. This led him to wonder where the spell's water was even coming from, and after some tests, he figured out it just gathers ambient moisture. So to level up his skill, he started using a local slime as a practice target. Over the years, as Kevin grew, so did his little training buddy. Back in the present, he asks the giant slime if it is here for the usual, like this is just another Tuesday. He just offer it some water, calling it a little glutton, and the slime would happily absorb his practice spells. This prompted 4-year-old Kevin to name it Deifuku, and the little guy seemed to absolutely love it. With the flashback over, Kevin and his now giant buddy are reunited. He glances back at Jake, diagnosing him with a severe case of hero syndrome. Jake, meanwhile, is just having a complete meltdown on the ground. Kevin thinks about how little Jake knows about the world, especially since he is a kid who can use powerful magic before his ceremony. Turns out, Kevin used appraisal on him a month ago and saw all his stats. And frankly, the idea of a commoner slinging that kind of power is terrifying. Normally, kids with rare jobs get sent to special academies in the capital. He visualizes the whole system as a talent pipeline from villages to the kingdom. Carrying Jake home, he wonders what skills he will get when he turns 12. This whole situation reminds him of when he was 4 years old. His mom would tell him he was the center of her world, which led to him dramatically trying to open the Akashic records. It is a core memory of pure cringe his family will never let him forget. Thanks to that, at age 4, he was officially diagnosed with hero syndrome himself. He realizes the village adults just let his odd behavior slide, thinking he is just a weird kid. Kevin arrives at Jake's house calling out that he has made a special delivery and gives the door knocker a rap, which is answered by a very cheerful-looking woman, Jake's mom. She is understandably shocked to see Kevin carrying her son home piggyback style. He just explains that Jake fell asleep by the water, so he figured he'd drop him off. Later that night, Jake's dad is sitting at the table when his wife comes rushing in. He calmly asks if their son is awake, but she is absolutely glowing with pride. She's ecstatic that their boy has a talent for magic, calling him a total genius while dad looks miserable. Mom's already dreaming about him working in the capital, leaving her husband to his silent dread. This dad thinks back on the last month, how Jake trained with his sword every day without complaint. He decided to be proud of his son's hard work, even if it was just a case of hero syndrome. But now he is having some serious second thoughts. As he faceplants on the table, realizing Jake has the extreme version of the syndrome. See, there are two main types of this condition, the genuine and the pretend. This genuine types are the stoic, hyper-focused prodigies who master the sword or magic through sheer grit. And then you have the pretend types, your classic Chunabiu kids with delusions of sealed powers. Dad had just assumed Jake was the genuine hero of the sword type, but there is an incredibly rare third variant that combines both the stoic and the delusional. This ultimate condition is known as the hero of heroes, the absolute pinnacle of hero syndrome. Dad flashes back to his adventure days, remembering the truly exceptional ones. Recalling the two types of heroes, the stoic grinders and the delusional dreamers. But when those traits combine, you get a hero of heroes, a completely different breed of warrior. And of course, there is a catch. Most of those legendary heroes burn out and die young, never reaching their full potential. This realization hits him like a truck, and he absolutely loses it, screaming that Jake is on a one-way trip to an early grave. He is spiraling, completely unsure how to handle this as a parent. Just then, Jake wakes up and calls out to him, asking if his dad is okay and apologizing for the trouble. This kid looks down, trying to remember what even happened. He starts explaining how he one-shotted a slime with a fireball spell, but then a giant slime showed up out of nowhere. In his moment of glory, he thought he could actually win, only for his magic to be completely useless against it. He admits that for the first time, he was genuinely terrified of a monster. In a blind panic, he just spammed spells until he blacked out. Breaking down, he cries that he will never be the strongest if he is this weak. His dad just stares, taking in his son's raw confession. Then he gently places a hand on Jake's head to comfort him. Through his tears, Jake promises he will be more careful from now on, and his dad just quietly listens, hand still on his head. As Jake realizes if he'd just been a little calmer, none of this would have happened. He clenches his fist, his resolve hardening, declaring this humiliating defeat the very first step on his path to growth. Dad is just floored by his son's sudden comeback attitude, so he pulls the kid into a proper hug. He is thinking about how much Jake has already grown from a single failure, a lesson that so many young adventurers never get the chance to learn. He tells Jake he is going to become stronger than anyone realizes. This next day, we cut to Kevin looking over his garden with some serious concern. But then he holds up a plant, absolutely beaming because his experiment worked. A closer look reveals a distinct red line on the leaf's underside, and he cheers that his normal healing grass has turned into a fake healing grass. Turns out he started this whole herb cultivation experiment a month ago, and quickly noticed that just moving the plants from the forest to his field made them change. He guessed it was related to the magic in the soil, but had no way to actually measure it. So he started watering them with mana-infused water from his water spell, and it was a total success. He is now able to cultivate the real herbs without them changing. His big discovery is a new farming cycle. Use slime remains as fertilizer to enrich the soil, which in turn grows better herbs. This whole slime fertilizer thing opens up some wild new possibilities. And Kevin is absolutely loving the results. In fact, he is having a full-blown meltdown over his discovery of the century, until he realizes that if anyone finds out, best case is house arrest, worst case is a permanent dirt nap, or maybe a lifetime of forced labor as a royal researcher. So yeah, the correct answer is to just not tell anyone ever. With that settled, he gets back to work. But now he has a new problem: what to do with this massive harvest. For now, he decides to just use it as feed for his big worms, tossing a fresh batch into their enclosure. He notices that since he started adding slime to their diet, their population has exploded, which is totally fine by him since he's got plenty of food to go around. He has already got the next step of his plan in motion, singing about them becoming good meat, roasting a massive chunk of worm over a fire, and it looks like it is just about ready, after a quick blow to cool it down. He takes a gigantic, well-earned bite. Our boy is just chilling on a crate, enjoying the fruits of his labor, looking completely satisfied with his gourmet worm steak, and the verdict is in: it is absolutely delicious. This herbs he fed them completely changed the flavor, making it juicy and savory. A sudden thought interrupts his meal. He almost forgot the secret ingredient, this finishing touch, a shaker of rock salt. He sprinkles on the salt, a gift from the village chief, and goes in for the real taste test, where the flavor is a total revelation. This taste literally sends him to another dimension. He is just left completely stunned, and in his daze he devoured the entire thing. This recipe is so good it could literally start wars. He remembers the village chief talking about nobles, how they lock away chefs to hoard groundbreaking recipes. It is all about monopolizing power, even through food. This thought of those powerful people is absolutely terrifying. He realizes if he is going to popularize this, he needs a solid plan. For now, he will focus on a detuned version of the worm meat. Even so, he cannot stop thinking about that perfect flavor. Just then, he feels a sudden warmth on his lap. He pulls up his pant leg to check something and is completely floored by what he finds. This old scar he has had since he was 4 is just gone. This is, of course, absolutely terrible news. See, only super rare high potions can heal old wounds like that. Which can only mean one thing: his entire farm of big worms now has the effect of a high potion. Our boy has accidentally created a strategic war-level resource, and he knows he is in deep, deep trouble. This plan is simple: destroy the evidence immediately. His life is way more important than some gourmet meat right now. Meanwhile, out in the forest, Jake is staking out the area, waiting for his rival to show up. He is still stewing over his defeat, realizing he went in totally blind. He remembers his dad's advice to build a proper foundation first, which means getting stronger and actually understanding his enemy. That giant slime had to be some kind of high-tier variant, something powerful enough to completely crush him. Just then a slime appears and he thinks it is the one, so he immediately tries to use his appraisal skill on it. This appraisal window pops up, revealing the slime's stats, and Jake is not prepared for what he is about to read. Turns out it is just a regular slime with a fancy title, the one who evolved. He is completely stunned. It is not some rare boss monster, meaning he got absolutely bodied by a slightly overgrown starter mob. The sheer humiliation of it all just crashes down on him. He flashes back to his past life as the legendary hero Jake and has a full-on meltdown about losing to the weakest monster in the world. For a second, he almost gives up, thinking a village kid cannot be the strongest. But then a new fire lights up in his eyes. He glares at the completely oblivious slime and dramatically declares it his mortal enemy, vowing to crush it someday. With his pride salvaged, he makes a tactical retreat for the day. This slime, meanwhile, just registers him as a new playmate. It happily bounces around, not a single care in the world. We then jump forward 3 whole months, cutting to a man with a mustache working at his desk. He looks up annoyed as his son calls out to him. And in walks a completely transformed Kevin, looking way healthier. His dad, Michael, just brushes him off, saying he is too busy to talk. This chief's son starts lecturing his dad that all this paperwork is beneath a man of his station, insisting the most powerful guy in the village should act like it, not shuffle papers. Michael just internally sighs, wondering how he managed to raise such a monumental fool. This kid then pivots, demanding to know when the next merchant is coming because he wants something. Turns out he is daydreaming about a glorious, sparkling sword he feels he deserves, promising that with a cool weapon he will finally earn the villagers' respect. He even crumples a document declaring he is not a boring paper pusher like his old man. Michael is visibly trembling with rage, using every ounce of self-control not to lose it. He grits his teeth and explains that merchants do not just carry expensive swords around, but his son just waves it off and slams the door on his way out. Michael is left completely exasperated, sighing over his useless kid, when suddenly another person knocks, asking the chief for a new knife. Still on edge, Michael snaps, wondering what it could possibly be now. But this time it is Kevin, who looks a little taken aback by the chief's harsh tone. Michael immediately calms down, asking what the knife is for, and Kevin says it is for research. He explains he is trying to improve the quality of big worm meat, which requires more trips into the forest. He even hopes to eventually sell his improved products through the village chief, which gets Michael's attention. Kevin lays out how selling high-quality goods will boost the entire village's reputation and attract more merchants. This chief is absolutely floored. This kid is thinking about the village's economy, unlike his own son. Kevin then adds that he is also running low on salt for processing and was hoping for a little more. Michael cannot help but compare Kevin to his own useless son, and the difference is just painful. He is so impressed he decides to give Kevin priority access to salt and a brand new knife. Kevin is absolutely thrilled, thanking the chief with a triumphant fist pump. This chief tells him he has high expectations, leaving Kevin a little confused by the sudden pressure. Back in the forest, Kevin calls out to his slime Deifuku, letting it know that food's ready. He has been frantically turning his potion worms into emergency rations ever since his big discovery. All the processed meat is being kept top secret in a shed, hidden from his family. Thanks to this, he has got a steady supply of what is essentially super jerky. Any scraps he could not preserve with his limited salt are now being fed to Deifuku. And it turns out the slime absolutely loves the potion-infused worm meat. He has drastically scaled back his operation, now only raising a small batch of worms in a mini-pool. Lately, he has noticed that Deifuku has been getting noticeably bigger. He has even managed to teach the slime a few tricks, like giving a paw. This slime even knows how to ask for a second helping. At this point, the wild monster has been completely domesticated into a giant, bouncy pet. He casually climbs on top of his new best friend, when he suddenly spots something moving behind him. 2 massive worms, one yellow and one green, have popped up out of nowhere. Turns out the 2 worms he kept for research have grown to the size of anacondas. They have also become best buds with Deifuku, and now they are all playing together again. This green worm suddenly fires off an earth ball, while the yellow one spits out a water ball, much to Kevin's surprise. Deifuku the slime just casually bats the rock away and then happily absorbs the water projectile. Kevin's been watching them play this game, but something about it feels off. See, every time Deifuku absorbs that water, it gets weirdly energetic. He asks the yellow worm if that was really just a normal water ball. A bad feeling starts to creep in, so he decides to run a little test. He holds out a bowl asking his pet worm for a sample. This worm happily obliges, filling the bowl with the strange liquid. Kevin then takes a sip, ready for the worst. It tastes surprisingly clean and a warm feeling spreads through his body when he suddenly notices his own arms starting to glow. He is thinking no way, but he absolutely has to confirm his suspicion. So he gives himself a small cut with his brand new knife and pours the worm's liquid directly onto the wound. His eyes going wide with disbelief. This cut heals instantly, leaving his skin sparkling clean. He stares at his two giant pets, realizing they are literally spitting out potions. And just like that, he is sitting on a national-level secret that could get him locked away forever. Kevin calls his monster pets to order for a little training session, hoping to teach the worms how to make a regular water ball instead of a potion, because if these things keep evolving any further, his own life is going to be in serious jeopardy. We then cut to his daily life, where 9-year-old Kevin is now training 3 other kids by the water, including a girl named Emily who is now strong enough to swing a massive club. He is pretty proud of how far she has come from the crybaby she was 2 years ago, and he even crafted her a special, unbreakable training weapon using his unique mana technique. Of course, even her full-power swing just bounces harmlessly off Deifuku, who is also serving as a training dummy for Jake and another boy named Jimmy. Jake looks way more determined than before, clearly leveling up his skills, and his partner Jimmy is just as fired up for their big attack, unleashing a powerful synchronized strike on the unbothered slime. Kevin's a little surprised, wondering if they have actually developed a combo move, while Emily realizes her earlier attack was just a feint for this main assault. Unfortunately for them, their swords just get completely absorbed by Deifuku's body, stopping them cold. This slime then casually yeets them both into the sky as Kevin waves them off. As they head home, Kevin notes that Deifuku seems extra bouncy today, leaving Emily totally drained. This scene then shifts to a cozy-looking house, which turns out to be a local apothecary, where a woman named Miranda rewards a hard-studying Kevin with the title of beginner alchemist. His alchemy lessons with Miranda have been a huge help, covering everything from herb prep to storage, and he is especially glad he learned to identify poisonous plants before making a fatal mistake. He has even discovered new spices, which has seriously leveled up his meat-cooking skills. Miranda watches the kids with a fond smile, while her other 3 students are completely drained after another training session with Deifuku. Emily's bummed they lost again, but Jake points out they landed one more hit than last time. It is progress. With their spirits renewed, they get fired up for the next round, which Miranda finds adorable. Kevin then flips the script, asking what she has been up to for fun lately. She gets flustered, immediately thinking about the village chief, Michael, bringing her supplies, and just the thought of talking to him sends her into a blushing mess. Kevin puts 2 and 2 together, noting he has seen them together a lot recently, but Miranda quickly clarifies that the chief is already married to an adventurer named Cindy. Turns out, Cindy married Michael, had their son, and then just ditched the whole family to go adventuring. Kevin feels a pang of sympathy for the chief, who works his tail off for the village with a runaway wife and a useless kid. He thinks it'd be nice if Michael and Miranda got together, but realizes the situation is complicated. Shifting gears, he remembers his 3 trainees, deciding they are ready for a real challenge. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he suggests adding the giant worms to their next sparring match. This other 3 are, to put it mildly, absolutely horrified by this idea, as the door to the room opens. Jake and Emily are already on their knees, begging Kevin for mercy and screaming that it is way too soon. Meanwhile, one of the village elders is marveling at how absurdly strong the kids have gotten lately, noting that Jake in particular has mastered fighting through mana exhaustion. Jake, however, is just worried about Deifuku's next counterattack getting even stronger, while Emily tries to keep his spirits up. Miranda just watches them all with a warm, knowing smile. Later that day, Kevin's back at his own place, tending to a garden that looks suspiciously well-maintained. He thanks his helpers for watering the plants, revealing that his 2 giant research worms have been his personal gardeners for the past 2 years. He still cannot quite believe how ridiculously huge they have become, but their tough new bodies have evolved to be the perfect scarecrows, keeping all the pests away. But as he is checking the crops, something seems a little off. A few of the plants are sparkling, looking way too healthy even for his standards. He puts it together instantly. The worms have been watering his garden with their potion spit. This yellow one just gives him the most innocent, sparkly-eyed look imaginable. Kevin has to give them a serious lecture, explaining his vegetables are already top tier and do not need a potion buff. Turns out, he has been using the nutrient-rich soil from their worm pool as a super fertilizer. And the resulting produce has been selling so well that the village chief is absolutely ecstatic. With garden duty done, Kevin tells his 2 pets it is time to head to their next job site. This ground cracks under the force of their new project, which is basically just Kevin and his monster worms digging a massive foundation for a new building. An old woman thanks Kevin for his hard work, offering a box of treats, which turns out to be full of horned rabbit bones for his 2 giant worms. This worms eagerly peek inside, much to the woman's happy surprise. She notes how much they absolutely love their bony snacks. Kevin's actually been using them to dig out worm pools for every single house in the village, and the reason he is doing all this backbreaking labor is because the village chief basically ordered him to. After Kevin shared his super jerky, the entire village decided to start farming big worms. He was a little shocked when they put him in charge of building all the pools by himself, but the chief masterfully manipulated him, promising to buy him anything he wanted for his hard work. Kevin, thinking of magic books and new tools, immediately got on board with the plan. Meanwhile, his two worms have become the village's adorable, oversized pets, with the local women raving about how amazing the vegetables from their garden are. They thank the worms directly for helping Kevin grow such high-quality produce. His pets are so popular they have even become the official brand mascots for the vegetables, leaving Kevin feeling a little left out and demanding some credit for himself. This scene then shifts over to Jake and the others in the forest. They are with a scarred, tough-looking man who announces today's hunt is for horned rabbits. He mentions the meat will be a reward for their hard work, a fine addition to dinner. But he gives them a stern warning not to get cocky just because they are getting stronger. These kids are all ears, ready for their first real hunt. And with a signal, the test officially begins. Sending the trio sprinting into the woods with weapons drawn, they quickly spot their targets, 3 horned rabbits just ahead, and Jake and Emily share a look, their plan already in motion. He grabs a few sticks, preparing the bait, and a quick toss creates the perfect distraction, getting the rabbits to turn their backs for just a second. That is the cue for Jake and Jimmy to launch their ambush from the trees, with Jake landing a perfect strike to take down the first one, while Jimmy's follow-up slash clears out the other two. Just like that, the fight seems to be over, and Jimmy's pretty stoked they pulled it off so cleanly. But their celebration is cut short by a sudden noise, because a fourth, much angrier rabbit was hiding in the bushes. Luckily, Emily was waiting for exactly this, intercepting it with a massive swing of her club. Jake gives her a solid thumbs up for the perfect save, telling her to stay on guard while the boys collect their loot. Their instructor, watching the whole thing, is left completely speechless. These kids proudly present their haul, having passed the test with flying colors. Hiding in the bushes, their instructor wonders what kind of child soldiers he is dealing with. And he is especially stunned by Emily's mana-infused swing, a clear result of Kevin's training. So he pops out to congratulate them on a successful first hunt and their excellent teamwork. But just as they are celebrating, he cuts them off, telling them they still need to experience the true terror of horned rabbits. He suddenly orders all 3 of them to climb into the nearby trees, and they quickly obey, watching him stand alone in the clearing below. From their perch, they have no idea what their master is planning, but his goal is simple: provoke and lure. He focuses his intent, getting ready to draw them out, and suddenly the entire forest begins to shake violently. Up in the trees, the kids are totally unprepared for the sudden tremor, because a massive horde of horned rabbits is stampeding right for him. This kids watch in absolute horror as their master is completely surrounded. But he is completely unfazed, calmly beginning to use a skill called mana weaving. He unleashes a massive whirlwind, a gale domain that blasts the rabbits away, leaving Jake absolutely floored, recognizing the advanced technique. This entire horde is caught in the vortex, completely helpless, and with a final intense shout, he unleashes the full force of the attack. This move leaves the entire swarm of rabbits completely dazed and harmless. With the horde neutralized, their instructor cracks his knuckles, giving them a smug grin after his little demonstration. He tells the kids it is finally safe to come down from the trees, explaining that horned rabbits are only a real threat in a swarm. He slings the haul over his shoulder, warning them never to get cocky, and the kids all agree he is the most terrifying thing in this forest. This cuts to a flashback of Kevin, who's been thinking about these same rabbits. How they are normally docile but will absolutely try to skewer you if they panic. So he had a simple galaxy brain thought: what if you just took the horn? Turns out you're left with a perfectly harmless, adorable bunny. A few months back, he'd ventured into the forest to test this theory, carefully observing a small herd from a distance. He then whipped up some homemade sleeping incense with his alchemy skills, successfully knocking out 8 of them without making a sound. While they were out cold, he carefully removed their horns, then applied a healing lotion to the wound before backing off to watch. This rabbits woke up a little confused but went right back to grazing. But when he made a sound, instead of attacking, they just bolted. He realized the horn was also their threat sensor, making them just timid critters without it. Now he just has to see if the horns ever grow back. This gets Kevin thinking about how diet could improve their meat quality. So with a brand new plan in mind, he goes straight to the village chief with a dehorned rabbit, asking for permission to farm them. He has already done the research. The horns take about 2 months to start regrowing, meaning they can just trim them on a cycle for an endless supply of safe, farmable monsters. This chief, realizing the potential, asks Kevin what kind of experiments he is planning, and our boy explains he will change their diet just like he did with the worms. He is practically vibrating with excitement to see how it'll change the taste of the meat. His goal is simple: make delicious food for the entire village to enjoy. This chief is genuinely moved by Kevin's desire to help the community prosper. He remembers how the villagers used to worry about the rabbits, telling Kevin to just set traps instead of trying anything risky. But Kevin had already whipped up a paralysis poison, a much safer solution that blew their minds. This villagers just chalk it up to him being the hero, so they have learned to roll with his crazy ideas. This chief muses that Kevin's version of being a hero is unconventional, to say the least. Still, he is worried about the backlash of raising dangerous creatures within the village walls. This political headache alone is making him sweat. But then he looks at the ridiculously cute, dehorned bunny in Kevin's arms and his resolve crumbles. His mind immediately shifts to pure profit, a new village specialty and a massive income boost. He decides to go for it, especially since the local lord is already hearing good things about their village. This chief agrees, but with a few strict conditions for Kevin's little rabbit farm, and our boy is just thrilled his experiment is a go, already planning the construction. This chief then gets curious about that sleeping incense Kevin mentioned. So Kevin pulls out a stick explaining it can knock out an entire herd. This immediately gets the chief's merchant brain spinning. He is practically seeing dollar signs until Kevin points out how easily it could be used for crime. Snapping out of it, the chief apologizes for his greed, but Kevin offers him some anyway. Just then, the door to the office clicks open, and some new guy walks in, spotting Kevin and the chief. He immediately points a shaky finger, demanding to know what asterisk that is. Because he has just spotted the horned rabbit in Kevin's arms. This dude absolutely loses it, grabbing a whole dresser to defend himself. But then he freezes mid-panic, noticing something's off. This rabbit does not have a horn. Kevin calmly explains he removed it to make the creature docile, but the guy is still terrified. He inches closer, realizing the bunny is not trying to skewer him, so he cautiously reaches out to poke its nose. This rabbit just gives his finger a little nibble, which for some reason sends the guy into a full-blown shriek. This chief just sighs, telling him to kick them out already if he is that scared. With the deal sealed, Kevin heads out, promising to report back on his progress, leaving the new guy Michael to grumble about kids playing with monsters. This comment clearly strikes a nerve with the chief, who reminds Michael that Kevin is the village's top contributor while he is the exact opposite. Before Michael can even respond, the door slams open again, and a woman in armor makes a very dramatic entrance. Both men are completely floored by her sudden appearance, recognizing her as Cindy, who also happens to be Michael's mom. She is overjoyed to see her son, though the chief seems less than thrilled by this family reunion. Michael immediately starts showing off his fancy new sword, bragging about all the monsters he has slain, even though the chief knows he has never used it once. He then proudly declares he will soon be the village's successor, a thought that gives his father a migraine. This chief is internally spiraling, convinced the village is doomed if this blowhard takes over. He thinks of all the promising kids in the village and knows he cannot let that future be destroyed. Meanwhile, Cindy is already nagging her son about finding a nice girl to marry, and hearing the word bride gives the chief a sudden, life-saving idea. He immediately calls out to Cindy, announcing he has a very important proposal regarding Michael's future. Back outside, Kevin is already hard at work building the walls for his rabbit farm when Jake and the other kids run up, begging him to teach them the same mana techniques he taught Emily. Kevin's a little taken aback by their sudden request, but his attention is quickly diverted by one of his new farm animals, which has the kids absolutely baffled. They see horned rabbits but with no horns. He casually explains he just took them off, making Emily wonder if that is even a thing you can do, as one of the fluffy critters hops closer. Emily is immediately hit with a critical dose of cuteness. She nervously asks if she can pet one, and Kevin gives her the all clear. This is apparently the best news she has ever heard in her life, and the little rabbit just stares up at her expectantly. With her heart pounding, she slowly reaches out her hand, gently stroking its head. This bunny instantly melts under her touch, completely content with the attention. Emily's resolve shatters. She is completely in love. This boys cannot believe this is the same girl who was trying to bash its brains in earlier, and Emily has a sudden, terrifying realization. If removing the horn makes them this cute, then she just has to dehorn all of them. Pushing that slightly alarming thought aside, she decides to name it Dango since it is so round, officially welcoming the little guy to the team. With the rabbit situation handled, Kevin turns back to the boys, asking if their uncle told them about Emily's training. Jake immediately asks his uncle to teach them, but the instructor just sweats, saying he cannot teach a technique that advanced. Kevin steps in, explaining his method is a custom job, totally different from standard mana weaving. He clarifies that what he taught Emily was not weaving at all, it was mana reinforcement. Their instructor agrees, adding that the real deal is a high-level skill reserved for elite adventurers. Kevin's version, on the other hand, is a simple life hack that anyone with a drop of mana can use. He breaks it down. Mana is just the fuel for magic, like kindling for a fire, and everyone has this energy inside their body. So his technique is just about bringing that power to the surface, as he demonstrates with a glowing aura. These kids are stunned, and Kevin explains that extending this aura to a weapon is the next step. Jake is completely sold, practically sparkling as he begs to learn it too. So Kevin tells him to grab something to hold, handing him a flimsy reed and explaining this is how Emily started her training. Jake immediately gets lost in a power fantasy, imagining himself as some grand wizard, and promptly snaps the reed in half with a little too much force. With a patient smile, Kevin tells him he is still in the middle of explaining. He clarifies that the goal is to consciously flow mana into the reed so it does not break. To show them what he means, he borrows another kid's wooden practice sword, explaining that once you truly master this, he reinforces the wooden sword and slices clean through a training post in one swing. This little demo leaves the other kids completely floored. Kevin gives a thumbs up, explaining his mana hack is perfect for everyday chores like chopping wood, telling the kids that once they master the reed, they can move on to the wooden sword. A few days pass with the kids deep in their training arc, and after breaking a whole forest of reeds, Jake finally gets the hang of it. Next up, Kevin teaches them how to form a basic mana orb in their hands, which you can then infuse with a simple spell to create a water ball. He demonstrates by playing a game of fetch with Dango while Emily watches in awe, tossing the little water projectile for the rabbit to chase, and Dango actually catches it, much to Emily's absolute delight. Kevin then explains the catch: you have to reinforce your own hand with mana, otherwise the ball just explodes on contact, which is exactly what happens to the boys, leaving them completely drenched. They are having a blast though, laughing it off as part of the fun. Emily is now desperate for her turn, but Kevin calls it a day for training. He then remembers something important. The chief called a village-wide meeting for the afternoon. Besides, he points out the boys are soaked and need to go change anyway, so everyone starts heading back toward the village center. There, the chief is already on a makeshift stage with Michael and Cindy addressing the crowd. He announces he has gathered them for a major decision that will impact all their lives. This villagers start murmuring, wondering what is going on and why Cindy is even there. With a calm smile, the chief begins his grand announcement, declaring that as of this day, he is officially retiring from his position. This villagers are absolutely stunned by this sudden news, and the shock echoes throughout the entire town. Later that night, the whole village is throwing a massive party to celebrate, where the kid's instructor, completely wasted, starts telling Kevin he knows nothing about sword fighting. This chief, also enjoying the drinks, thinks it would be hilarious to see them spar, but the instructor is far more interested in getting another round, which brings us back to what actually happened at the meeting. A few hours earlier, the chief had laid out his retirement plan in full, explaining that his son Michael would succeed him with Cindy's support. However, this came with two conditions. Michael had to become a silver rank adventurer and find a suitable bride. So he sent Michael and Cindy off on a training journey, leaving himself as the acting chief in their absence. He knew, however, that the family name itself would be a problem for Michael's claim. So in a brilliant move, he officially divorced Cindy, severing her ties to the ruling family. Back at the party, he is bragging to Kevin about how he masterfully exiled his own family. And the whole village is celebrating its rebirth under new management. Kevin, ever the pragmatist, points out that they will probably just come back stronger someday. This thought clearly had not occurred to the chief, who suddenly looks very concerned, and he takes a long, nervous sip of his ale, his perfect plan now seeming a little less perfect. This chief insists Cindy will train Michael properly since she has always been too soft on him. Kevin just smiles, pointing out it is always better to have countermeasures ready. This sparks a whole new scheme in the chief's mind, and he pulls Kevin in close. He reveals he was recently promoted to oversee all 5 villages in the region, and that is when he got a truly brilliant idea. He wants to spread Kevin's big worm farming method to every single village. Kevin is shocked, realizing a project that big would definitely attract the regional lord's attention. This chief just smirks. That is the entire point. His ultimate goal is to get the lord to designate their area as a special agricultural district. Kevin immediately understands the genius of it. The lord's direct control would completely nullify Michael's future claim to power. While it means more oversight, the chief explains the benefits are more than worth it. Taxes would be cut, new roads would be built, and they'd get a budget from the lord for new farming ventures. Kevin's eyes light up at the mention of a tax cut, much to the chief's amusement. This chief then adds he is also planning to boldly push forward with the horned rabbit farm. He explains the real stakes. If this plan succeeds, it could drastically reduce the number of people who starve during the winter. Kevin sobers up, realizing that for these villagers, just surviving until spring is a genuine struggle. He looks over at the chief with a whole new level of understanding. And the old man gives him a proud, confident smile. He officially asks for Kevin's help in improving the health and prosperity of everyone in the village. This instructor then chimes in, asking if that mana reinforcement trick could also be used for physical enhancement, and Kevin confirms it can. This instructor's eyes light up, begging Kevin to teach his mana trick to the entire village. Kevin immediately pictures the whole town turning into a super soldier army, which seems a little intense. But he has to admit the idea of creating the strongest village sounds pretty awesome. He suggests they will need a proper training ground to make it happen. This chief is all in, winking that he has been stressed out and is ready to make this village #1. A few months pass and winter settles over the quiet village. We focus on a single cozy house with smoke rising from its chimney. Inside, a woman named Maria is working in the kitchen. Her husband Thomas gently places a jacket over her shoulders, telling her not to get cold. Maria just blushes, thinking her husband is absolutely adorable. She also notes to herself that she has been using a bit too much mana on housework lately. Suddenly, their son bursts out of the house with a ton of energy, shouting that he is off to do his daily exercises. His parents watch him go, amazed at his spirit on such a cold morning. This boy sprints through the snowy landscape, not letting the weather slow him down. He shivers for a second, realizing just how freezing it is today. So he casually casts a heat spell, wrapping himself in a warm aura. Now perfectly comfortable, he keeps running, thanking Kevin for the incredibly useful skill. He reflects on how simple life magic, like keeping soup warm, can be adapted for so much more. Even the basic water spell can be reversed to instantly dry laundry, a total game changer for chores. This kid realizes Kevin's mana hack is a total life changer, and he reflects on Kevin's whole "I am weak, protect me" act, which is hilarious coming from the guy who is clearly not just some villager. Back in the present, Jake rushes to the new morning assembly, where Kevin is now leading the entire village in their daily exercises. He starts them off with some basic stretches, getting everyone warmed up for the day. Of course, Kevin's version is a little more Extra, this all takes place at the new health plaza in the village center, and after the warm-up they partner up to practice flowing mana or even play a little game of mana catchball. It is not just for training either, everyone's using mana in their daily lives now. Jake cannot help but notice the whole village is getting ridiculously strong, and he remembers his old self who cried about being weak. Realizing just how cringy his "I will be the strongest" phase was, Kevin meanwhile takes a well-deserved break from his new instructor duties. Turns out this whole thing is an official village-wide health initiative. Basically a fantasy version of senior citizen exercise classes from his old world. They have even split the classes, life magic for the women, combat weaving for the men. He even makes house calls to help the elderly and sick use mana for a better quality of life. Kevin muses that he has basically become a lifestyle coach, and the results of his program are already showing up. This acting chief, Drake, makes a grand entrance looking completely transformed, so much so that Kevin barely even recognizes him. Thanks to the new training, the entire village is overflowing with energy, and Drake proudly flexes the new muscles he has gained from it. Kevin teases him that a certain lady has been noticing his new look. Just as they spot an old woman who used to be completely bedridden, she is now up and walking, motivated entirely by the promise of premium meat. Drake is stunned, asking Kevin how in the world he pulled that off. Turns out Kevin just bribed her with big worm meat to get her training. With that settled, Drake puts Kevin on Horned Rabbit Farm construction duty, a project Kevin remembers thinking was a bit crazy at first. And now he is the one stuck doing all the manual labor in the snow. He asks why he is the only one working while everyone else is off for the winter, and the chief's brilliant reason is simple cost cutting. Since Kevin has the most know-how, he gets to do all the work. Resigned to his fate, he gets back to it for the good of the village, but as he is working, he suddenly senses a presence nearby, which is weird since most monsters should be hibernating right now. That presence turns out to be a tiny caterpillar monster, which Kevin, of course, immediately decides to take home. A quick check of his monster manual confirms it is a distinct species, not just a bug, and thankfully it is the harmless variety, so he tells his rabbit Dango not to eat it. This little guy is just way too cute to leave out in the cold, so he temporarily dubs it Experimental Monster Number 5 before landing on the much friendlier named Tsumugi. Tsumugi, for its part, is already wondering if its silk can be used for anything cool. Kevin tries to get his two pets to be friends, and for a brief moment it looks like they might actually get along, until Dango gets a little too curious and Tsumugi completely panics, launching itself into the air with a sudden burst of thread and pulling a full-on Spider-Man escape across the ceiling. Later on, Kevin heads over to visit a woman named Miranda, finding the village kids already there for a strategy meeting. Miranda happily offers to make everyone tea and cookies, telling them all to just sit down and wait for a bit. This whole scene is incredibly cozy and warm, and another man is there enjoying a cup of her tea. He thanks her for her hospitality and she thanks him for always buying her potions. This man with her notes how lively the place has got, and Kevin joins in, teasing one of the kids about growing up so fast. This makes Miranda realize it has been 8 whole years since she came to this village. This man seems to notice her sudden pensive mood, but she just smiles, agreeing that time really does fly. Her thoughts drift back to how it all started, taking us to a flashback in the capital city. We see her getting struck by her father for being an unfilial child, who stands over her with her mother, absolutely furious. He was enraged that she'd fallen for a commoner adventurer. Turns out, Miranda grew up in an old mansion on the outskirts of the capital. This daughter of a minor noble who was drowning in debt just to maintain his pride. Her father screams that her future husband has already been decided, revealing the groom-to-be was his much older, sleazy-looking boss. He explains that this man, Lord Claudia, has taken a liking to her, and since he was just promoted, he has offered her father a position as his assistant. This deal was simple. She marries the Lord and their family's financial problems vanish. Miranda clenches her fist, refusing to be sold off. Her father's rage boils over at her defiance, but just as he raises his hand to hit her again, her mother steps in to stop him. Her mother warns that if she keeps this up, she will only get hurt more, leaving Miranda completely stunned by the sudden intervention. But her mom just gives this terrifying smile, saying it is not too late, and Miranda's world shatters in an instant as her own mother shoves her out of the house. This door slams shut, her father screaming that she is endangering the baby. Her mind flashes back to her adventurer boyfriend, Hugo, remembering his promise that they would escape the capital together. But now she is all alone in a dark alley, completely abandoned by her family. Just then, 2 familiar faces arrive, a younger Maria and Thomas carrying Hugo's things, and Miranda can only stare at his dirt-stained bag in confusion. Maria has to deliver the devastating news. Hugo is gone. Turns out he'd been taking on extra solo quests to save up money for their future, but on his way back from the last one he was ambushed. Miranda completely breaks down, clutching the only thing she has left of him. As we learn, Maria and Thomas were his former party members. As she is crying over his bag, she notices a single white flower tucked into the strap. Thomas explains that Hugo always picked one for her after his quests in the demon forest. Clutching the flower, Miranda can only whisper Hugo's name. As her friends watch her world completely shatter, Maria notices her suitcase and asks if she got kicked out. And then Miranda drops the other bombshell: she is pregnant with Hugo's child. She explains that her father found out, which is what sent him over the edge. Thomas and Maria are just stunned by the absolute disaster of a situation, but Maria quickly tells her they are all leaving the capital immediately. Turns out the party was planning to disband after Hugo's wedding anyway, and in a twist of fate, Maria was also expecting a child at the time. So the three of them quit the adventure life and headed for the frontier. Their journey eventually leads them to a remote village in the mountains, where they present themselves as hopeful new settlers. A much younger, rounder Drake was surprisingly welcoming and honest about the place. This village took them in and Miranda became their pharmacist, raising her daughter Emily. And that is how, thanks to Hugo's friends, she found a happy life. Back in the present, the man she is having tea with calls her name, telling her he has something he wants to give her. He then presents a huge bouquet of those exact same white flowers, leaving Miranda completely speechless. He asks if she recognizes the flowers from her past. He explains a merchant told him these flowers only grow in the demon forest, and when Miranda asks why he got them, he just gets all flustered, saying he thought they'd suit her, the exact same thing Hugo used to say. That memory hits her all at once, and her sudden stare makes the poor guy incredibly nervous, but she is actually starting to tear up from happiness. He immediately panics, thinking he has somehow offended her, but she just wipes a tear away with a small smile. In that moment, she is just so glad she came to this village. This man is completely captivated by her radiant smile, and he slowly reaches out his hand, gently tilting her face up for what is definitely about to be a kiss, until a very loud, very intentional cough shatters the mood, and they both jump back, seeing the kids spying from the doorway. Kevin, their ringleader, just says he was stopping by for medicine, before grabbing the kids and telling them to stop bothering the adults. He quickly ushers them all outside, slamming the door shut. This man is totally embarrassed, but Miranda just thanks him again for the flowers, and then she asks if he'd like to come over for dinner sometime. He is, of course, completely stunned by the invitation. Miranda happily accepts, saying Emily would be thrilled to have him over. Meanwhile, back at Kevin's place, he's got a new project in mind, holding Tsumuga's silk cocoon and determined to turn it into proper thread. He visits the village's former weaver, an old woman named Bennett, for some expert advice, and learns Tsumugi produces two types of silk, one sticky and one not. This non-sticky kind is what it uses for those dramatic Spider-Man escapes, which has Kevin absolutely buzzing with ideas for this new resource. Bennett takes a closer look at the cocoon he brought her, explaining the sticky thread is perfect for high-end, noble undergarments, while the non-sticky stuff is tough enough for adventurers' protective gear. And just like that, Kevin's got a whole business plan forming in his head. Bennett mentions villagers normally just use hemp, which confuses Kevin, since his own outfit does not feel like hemp at all. She laughs, revealing most of the village's clothes are actually made from this caterpillar silk, all thanks to Drake setting up a production system way better than the last chief's. She even has a loom ready to go for processing the fibers into goods. Kevin promises to bring her the materials if she will teach him how to spin it, which makes her wonder how he is possibly going to pay for her time, so he just whips out a massive slab of premium monster meat as payment. And of course, Bennett is immediately on board, completely won over by the bribe, and with that deal settled, Kevin takes his leave from the old weaver, practically skipping home, already dreaming of upgrading the village's quality of life. Next thing we know, he is on the road with the acting chief, heading to another village. Their destination is Gold Village, which is apparently the acting chief's wife's hometown. Kevin's first impression is that this place is the definition of a backwater frontier town. Turns out this whole trip started 3 hours ago, just as the foundation for the new Horn Rabbit farm was completed. And his two little wyverns were happily chowing down on some bones as a reward. This acting chief strolls by, impressed with the progress on the new rabbit farm, and then asks Kevin for a favor, which is a bit rich coming from the actual acting chief. He tells him they need to go on a little trip, catching Kevin completely off guard. Back at the house, the guy explains this is related to that big agricultural project they have been planning. This mission is simple. He needs Kevin to tour the other 4 villages and teach them his revolutionary big worm farming methods. It is incredibly sudden, but his parents already gave the okay, so all Kevin has to do is hop in the carriage. And just like that, they are off on their diplomatic mission. This 2 of them head out in a horse-drawn wagon ready for the journey, except this is not just any wagon, it is magically enhanced for a smooth, warm ride in the winter. Kevin finally asks the obvious question, why the sudden rush for this meeting? This acting chief explains there is a glasswolf den nearby, and since the wolves are hibernating, now is the only safe time to make the trip. Never want to waste a trip, Kevin asks if they can stop to catch some caterpillars on the way. On the ride, Kevin casually mentions he's got a new business venture, whipping out a spool of thread he made from Tsumuga's silk. This acting chief immediately recognizes it as caterpillar silk, completely stunned, and Kevin just grins, saying he found a stray one and got Bennett to help him process it. This chief's mind is blown, a whole new textile industry from caterpillars. Kevin admits he is only raising one so far, which is why he wanted to find more. But the chief is already thinking logistics, wondering how many they'd need for mass production. Kevin clarifies that it is not a one-and-done deal where you get 1 silk bag per caterpillar. He hands the spool over, telling the man to feel the quality for himself, and the chief is shocked by how ridiculously strong the thread is. Realizing this is not normal silk, it is the legendary attack thread. Our boy just gives him a smug look, revealing there are actually 3 types of fiber. Turns out there is the normal stuff, a sticky version, and this super durable attack thread. This chief is losing his mind, since you can get this stuff without even harvesting the caterpillar's main silk bag. Kevin explains the caterpillars just spit it out when they see an enemy, like that goblin loincloth he bought. He is still in the research phase, but then he spots a whole bunch of them in a nearby field. This acting chief just sits there, completely silent, as he processes the fact that they could potentially mass-produce this incredible material. He finally says that if this is real, it is a game changer for the entire region. His mind is already racing with the possibilities of a new industry, maybe even supplying nobles. This acting chief is still trying to wrap his head around this whole thing, while Kevin casually warns him that getting too greedy can shorten one's lifespan, a not-so-subtle threat that leaves the poor guy completely speechless. Kevin explains they just need to find a way to safely provoke the caterpillars for the good stuff, but the chief is already seeing the downside. Attracting noble attention could ruin their quiet lives. Out here on the frontier, the goal is to live long and stay under the radar. He starts asking Kevin if he has really thought through all the risks, but our boy is already out of the cart, pushing it along while still hunting for more caterpillars. They finally arrive at their destination, Gold Village. This acting chief knocks on the door of the village head's house, announcing himself as Drake from Marcel Village, which has Kevin doing a double take, realizing this is the same Drake from Miranda's story. Drake quickly explains he is keeping his new title and his recent divorce on the down low for now. Just then they hear the door begin to open, and it swings wide, revealing the chief of Gold Village. This man happily welcomes Drake, clearly glad to see him. Drake gives a friendly wave, looking noticeably slimmer than he used to, a fact the Gold Village chief notices immediately, grabbing him in a panic, yelling about how he has lost all his weight and wondering if he is sick, but Drake just laughs it off, saying he is just on a new health kick. Kevin's quietly amused by the chief's warm, if slightly over-the-top welcome, and inside the village head's house they get right down to business. This chief asks what brings them all the way out here, so Drake launches into his smooth presentation on the big worm farming project. Our boy is genuinely impressed. Drake's got the merchant talk down perfectly. This chief is immediately overcome with emotion, calling it a miracle and pledging his full support. He even tries to go in for a hug, but Drake just casually blocks him with a magic shield. With the deal made, Drake asks to see the construction site and gather the men. This chief's wife happily agrees to round everyone up. She leads them out to a plot of land perfect for the new farm. Kevin immediately gets to work, checking the soil and asking about bricks, but Drake explains the chief is a former stonemason, so he will understand Kevin's create block skill. With that settled, Kevin decides to just dig the foundation himself before anyone else shows up. This chief, however, is a little distracted by his ridiculously large shovel. Kevin explains it is a new wooden tool that moves earth way faster with a little mana infusion. Drake has learned by now to just not question Kevin's magical inventions, as the shovel begins to glow with power, and our boy starts digging at a superhuman pace. He is having way too much fun, declaring himself a professional hole digger. This leaves Drake and the chief just staring, completely bewildered by the kid's enthusiasm. By the time the villagers arrive, Kevin's already dug a massive, perfect foundation by himself. This Gold Village chief is ecstatic, already calling him a future paladin for his hard work. Kevin, however, is not enjoying the spotlight and tells the gawking crowd to move along. With the foundation dug, it is time for a live demonstration on building the worm farm. He starts by mixing some clay with a little water magic, then uses his block skill to instantly create a perfect mortar between the bricks. This leaves the entire village audience completely and utterly speechless. But Kevin's not done yet, explaining they will need sand for proper drainage. So he just casually uses pulverized to turn a solid brick into a pile of fine sand. And once again, the crowd just stares, their minds completely fried. He actually has to turn around and ask if anyone is even paying attention. Drake quietly explains to the chief that Kevin is using chantless life magic, which is not normal at all. In fact, that kind of power is usually reserved for high-ranking mages. When they ask where he even learned these spells, Kevin has to stop and think, and just says he imagined it really hard until it worked, causing both adults to facepalm. Drake gets a serious look, deciding it is time to be blunt with the kid. He tells Kevin straight up that he is not just using asterisk magic, he is asterisk creating asterisk it. Kevin tries to brush it off, insisting it is just simple life magic. But the chief is now looking at him with a whole new level of awe and terror, asking if he realizes that earth attribute life magic is almost unheard of. This chief explains that stonemasons need actual tools to break rocks, so seeing Kevin turn a brick to sand with life magic is a world-shaking discovery. Drake pulls him aside, warning him to be more careful with his public displays of power. This sends Kevin into a full-blown panic, realizing his convenient magic is actually dangerously OP. He is terrified he could have been branded a threat without even knowing it, vowing to tone it down from now on. Thankfully, the chief managed to smooth things over and the construction lesson wraps up successfully, as the sun finally sets on a very long day. They are already back in the wagon, heading out of Gold Village. Kevin complains that it is already night because Drake and the chief got sidetracked with some celebratory drinks. It has gotten completely dark and he is worried about the late hour, but a slightly tipsy Drake assures him they will make it home tonight. Suddenly, Drake notices Kevin fiddling with something at the front of the cart. our boy is just attaching one of his new inventions to the wagon. And with a cheerful cry, he activates his petty light, which turns out to be a magical headlight illuminating the dark path ahead. Drake is completely floored, asking if it is some kind of magic tool. Kevin just casually calls it his light stick. With their new high beams, they can travel safely at speed, much to Drake's amazement. Drake immediately forbids him from ever selling the thing, realizing a normal person could not even power it. So Kevin starts explaining the mechanics, mentioning he used a special monoconductive wood for the handle. Drake, still trying to process the headlight, realizing it is a high mana item only a monster like Kevin could power. When Kevin proudly holds up a thick rope he made, explaining he wove it from the caterpillar's attack thread, which lets him transmit mana remotely, basically turning his invention into a wireless device. And Drake's brain just completely short-circuits for the third time today. He can only ask how in the world our boy even comes up with this stuff. But all this inventing has made Kevin seriously hungry. He is already dreaming of the hearty horn rabbit soup waiting for him back home. Meanwhile, in a rundown shack in York Village, dinner is looking a lot more grim. A young girl just stares sadly into her bowl of watery broth. This scene pulls back to show just how desolate her home really is. But elsewhere in the same village, inside a much nicer house, a fist slams down onto a table in pure rage. This is Keiji, the chief of York Village, and he is screaming about someone trying to poison his people with worm meat. Turns out he is yelling at Drake, who is trying to pitch the big worm project with Kevin at his side. Drake calmly explains he was just presenting it as a valuable new food source for the village. Then he dangles the real bait. The dried meat is also a huge source of income. Keiji's greed immediately kicks in, and he asks if something like that could actually sell. Drake lays out the catch. You cannot just sell any wild worm, only the specially farmed ones with improved quality. But Keiji just scoffs, saying he'd never eat worms and would not make his own daughter eat them either, completely missing the point. Drake explains the real genius of the plan: sell the worm meat, then buy actual good food with the profits. So the villagers eat worms while the chief eats well and the village gets rich. Keiji is instantly sold on this, completely missing the part where he is a terrible person. But before they can shake on it, Kevin raises his hand to interrupt, asking about the impoverished father and daughter he saw in the village square. Keiji just scoffs, calling them outsiders and a nuisance that nobody wants. Kevin is so disgusted he is ready to just walk out of this whole deal, while Drake calmly notes that he would have welcomed them as valuable labor. Our boy remembers seeing the other villagers giving that family the coldest stares imaginable, which is when Drake gets Keiji's attention for one more thing. He has a proposal concerning that family's rundown shack. This next morning, Kevin is once again teaching a crowd how to build a worm farm, noting that this village has a lot of buildings that could use some serious repairs, so he offers to teach them how to make magic bricks with life magic. And the entire crowd just goes dead silent, making Kevin panic that he is messed up again. He turns to Drake on the verge of tears, asking if the magic brick was too much for them. Drake has to explain that making bricks with life magic is supposed to be impossible. He just pats Kevin on the head, admitting he has gotten way too used to the kids' casual miracles. With the lesson over, they head back to the chief's house to follow up on Drake's proposal. Keiji smugly thanks them for teaching his people, acting like they owe him for the privilege of helping. Turns out Drake's proposal was to hire the father and daughter Keiji called a nuisance. And they have returned with a massive basket of big worms for the project. This was Drake's big move. He's paying the family to gather 10 caterpillars from the grasslands. This official cover story is food research, a lie Kevin notes has branded him the bug eater. But seeing the family get a real job, he cannot really complain. In fact, he is starting to think Drake is a genuinely good guy, and Drake is absolutely soaking up the praise. There is just one problem: no one's actually tried eating the worms yet. Kevin immediately volunteers to give it a shot right now. So with everyone gathered, he sets up an impromptu cooking station. He dramatically announces the start of Kevin's cooking show, much to the adults' confusion. First, he explains you gut the worm and stuff it with herbs, then wrap it in paper before encasing the whole thing in a layer of clay. With that done, he just plops the clay ball into a pile of dry leaves. He says a quick prayer to the gods of fire and unleashes his petty fire, which instantly ignites the entire pile. While the others are still processing the magic, Kevin's already prepping the next one. This time, he skewers the worm segments and roasts them over the fire with some rock salt. And just like that, the caterpillar skewers and clay-baked worm are served. Kevin immediately digs into the roasted caterpillar skewers, and his eyes go wide with genuine surprise. Because this stuff is actually delicious. Next up is the clay-baked worm, still steaming hot, which he cracks open with a satisfying crunch. Inside is a perfectly cooked, glistening meal. This incredible aroma wafts over the crowd, who can only stare and swallow nervously. Our boy grabs a spoon to try the main course. Scooping up a perfect, jiggly bite, he pops it in his mouth without a second thought, and once again he is completely blown away. This kid is in absolute culinary heaven. Turns out the steamed worm has a creamy, melt-in-your-mouth texture, leaving him wondering how this was never a delicacy before. Realizing he has been hogging the food, he offers some to his stunned audience. While the adults look horrified, the little girl eagerly raises her hand to volunteer. So Kevin happily serves up a couple of portions for them. Drake nervously offers the first bite to the girl, but decides to be the brave one and tries it himself first. And his entire world just shatters from the sheer deliciousness. Even the greedy chief is completely won over by the taste, and the little girl finally gets her turn looking just as stunned. Kevin just smiles, asking if she likes it, and her quiet focus on the food is all the answer he needs. He gives her a gentle pat on the head, promising she will get to eat well from now on in their village. He even asks if she will come and help him out, and with a simple nod, she is officially on the team. So with the demo a success, they bring the family back to Gold Village. Back home, Kevin gets right to work repairing the town's buildings, and his new assistant, a girl named Kate, is already carrying bricks. She and her father, Zarba, have officially been taken in. Drake immediately puts the dad to work, praising his own genius for finding new labor. Meanwhile, Kate has become Kevin's little shadow, even helping with the worms. With the last of the wall repairs finally done, Kevin shows them the brand new house he built just for them. He suggests they take a break and play for a bit, and Kate finally lets out a genuine happy smile. Elsewhere, a completely different kid stumbles upon a giant, friendly-looking slime and immediately tries to nuke it with a barrage of fire magic. Turns out Jake's fire barrage is doing absolutely nothing to the slime. So a girl named Emily tells him to step aside and let a real mage handle it. Meanwhile, another kid explains what he learned from Kevin, that anyone can use magic if they have the right affinity and chant. So Emily starts gathering her mana for a big attack, unleashing a powerful light ball right at the monster, which just bounces off like a pebble, much to her surprise. Jake realizes that after trying fire, wind, earth, and light, none of their elements can even scratch it, and Emily's pretty bummed since light magic is her only trick. This slime just stares them down, basically asking if it is its turn yet. That is when a new kid, Jimmy, steps up to the plate. He looks dead serious, ready to show them how it is done. He winds up and throws a ball of pure non-elemental magic, which slams into the slime with some serious force. Jake and Emily can only stare, completely stunned by the raw power. For the first time, the slime actually gets knocked back, looking totally shocked. This other kid explains Kevin's theory. Non-elemental users have way stronger base mana than elemental mages. He tells Jimmy to focus on shaping his mana, not casting spells, and it finally clicks for him. With a newfound confidence, Jimmy joins the other two, ready for round 2. This whole squad is now fired up, vowing to take down the big slime together. And back in the village, Kate is just enjoying a peaceful, happy day. We get a quick flashback to Kate's old life where she is clearly terrified, just for dropping a single plate. This poor kid is absolutely beside herself, collapsing in despair over the broken shards. Back in the present day at Gold Village, Kevin has brought back a jar of luminous moss. He shows it to the village pharmacist, who has never seen the real thing before, explaining the kids found it in a cave during their training. In fact, Jake came back literally covered in the stuff, a walking glow stick. Kevin's plan is to use it to make some kind of medicine, remembering a book he read about mana overload syndrome. It is a rare condition where having too much mana just makes you pass out. This book details a cure using the moss as a key ingredient, since its main property is absorbing ambient mana to glow. He asks the pharmacist, Miranda, if she remembers the recipe, and she confidently confirms she has already mastered it. There is just one tiny problem, the other rare ingredients. But Kevin just smiles, telling her it is all handled. He has already gathered everything they need, from dried slime to healing herbs, so Miranda gets him started on prep, grinding the slime into powder. With the grinding done, Kevin announces the prep is complete, and just like that, they have created a cure for mana overload syndrome. Miranda explains the dosage. 1 pill is standard, but a prodigy might need 3. She adds that nobles used to hide kids with this condition out of shame. So naturally, Kevin picks up one of the pills and decides to immediately taste test it for science. Miranda understandably freaks out, telling him to stop, but he just pops it in his mouth and swallows. He stands there perfectly fine, much to Miranda's confusion. In fact, he feels great, which only proves the recipe works right. Miranda realizes his mana pool is so massive 1 pill did absolutely nothing. Kevin's about to mention another project he made with the moss, but at that exact moment, Zarba bursts through the door. He is in a total panic, shouting that something's wrong with Kate. Both Kevin and Miranda are immediately on high alert. They all rush over to the family's new house. Inside, they find Kate unconscious, and Miranda instantly diagnoses it, mana overload syndrome. Zarba is completely devastated, thinking their peaceful new life is already over. He drops to his knees, begging Miranda to save his daughter, promising to repay any cost, and Kevin finally understands this was the real reason for Kate's suffering all along. Miranda explains Kate is malnourished and her body cannot handle the mana, thinking that collapsing now might have been for the best. But before she can give her the medicine, Kevin stops her. He asks if he can try a little experiment first, which understandably confuses the two adults in the room. Instead of a pill, our boy pulls out a strange blanket, drapes it over Kate, and just tells them to watch. This blanket immediately starts glowing, stunning everyone. Zarba starts to panic, thinking this is no time for games, but he is shocked to see Kate's complexion already improving. Elsewhere, a different village chief discusses implementing Kevin's worm farming methods, stressing about a rival village while Drake just floats smugly. Kevin, now with them, says he is staying the night and asks to take a walk. This chief agrees, just warning him to be back before it gets dark. As he is walking, something in the distance catches his eye. He spots some rundown shacks and wonders if they are part of the village. He asks a passing farmer, who calls it a slum for outsiders and tells him to stay away. Kevin is completely shocked to hear the word slum. He realizes these people are just like the survivors from York Village, living on the fringes because they cannot officially join the community. Kevin's trouble sensor is going absolutely wild. He knows something is off here, so he decides to march right in and investigate the situation himself. He walks into the slum, spotting a man and a young boy among the shacks. This man, clearly a leader figure, asks the kid why he is back so soon. Kevin politely introduces himself, asking to speak with the local representative. This guy just gives him a dead, unimpressed stare, which definitely puts Kevin on edge for a second. But then the man just grunts for him to follow, surprising the kid with how easily he agreed. As they walk, nervous residents peek out from behind tattered doorways, including a mother and child who look absolutely terrified. Kevin can tell they are all outsiders, and his presence has them on high alert. This guide grumbles that a well-fed guy like him has no business here, then tells him to get inside. He is led to a large tent, which seems to be the main headquarters. Kevin nervously announces his presence as he peeks through the flap and steps into a sparse room with a small pot over a fire. Sitting there is a very old woman bundled up in a cloak. She opens one eye with a sly grin, asking him what business he has. Kevin is immediately suspicious, thinking there is no way an elderly person could be this healthy in such a barren place. He is convinced it is completely unnatural and that she is hiding something big. His first priority now is to get her to lower her guard. Kevin starts his play, explaining he is just a simple guy sharing farming techniques, and apologizes for not being able to offer them better hospitality. He then says he is starving and asks to borrow their pot for a moment. This entire group just stares, completely speechless at his request. So our boy just uses his magic to create a brand new pot and ladle from scratch. He gets to cooking, figuring this is the fastest way to earn their trust. This old woman is internally panicking, wondering who this kid is that can just conjure cookware. Kevin takes the first sip of his soup, to prove it is not poisoned. He is absolutely delighted with how good it tastes. With a big smile, he offers some to everyone else. This old woman is still hesitant, but her stomach is clearly rumbling. Her two companions, on the other hand, dive right in without a second thought. This man's eyes go wide with shock at the incredible flavor. This younger kid is also blown away, saying he has never had soup this good. Kevin reassures the old woman that it is perfectly safe to eat. She finally gives in and takes a cautious sip, and her eyes immediately snap open in disbelief. Kevin explains the meat and vegetables were all grown using his big worm farming method. Her followers get worried by her silence, asking if she is okay, but she just gives them a sly wink, her guard finally down. Then the old woman's disguise just shatters into sparkling dust, revealing she is not an elderly person at all. Her eyes open, sharp and focused, and a pair of pointed ears confirms it. This was never an old woman. Kevin's frail host is actually a stunning elf. She admits his soup was just too good to resist, then pulls him into a very enthusiastic hug. Our boy is completely flustered by the sudden attention, and the whole tent gets a little awkward for a moment. Her followers immediately get serious, asking if their district is about to be exposed. This elf finally lets Kevin go, apologizing for the welcome. She gets down to business, explaining this village is a key agricultural area, which means the local lord will eventually send troops to secure it. Once that happens, their slum will be impossible to hide. Having been on the run for years, she understands the situation perfectly, which makes Kevin realize she's basically asking him to leave. Everyone living here has been persecuted, so they cannot afford any attention. Her people are naturally suspicious and cannot just reveal their identities, but Kevin says he has a few proposals they might want to hear. This elf leader listens intently, telling him to lay out his plan. So Kevin explains his various proposals to the group. He then heads back to the main village to fill in the acting chief, and Drake is understandably a little shocked by the news. Soon after, the entire slum population arrives at his doorstep, still disguised. Drake turns to Kevin, confirming these are the people he was talking about. He remembers Kevin's warning that ignoring the slum would hurt everyone's future. This disguised leader explains they have decided to accept Kevin's generous offer, adding a little flattery about Drake's reputation for being kind to outsiders. This whole group then bows deeply, formally asking to join the village. While Drake is internally panicking, Kevin just bows and asks for his support. This local kids are impressed by the chief's caution, a classic ex-merchant move. But with the promise of more workers for his agricultural project, Drake reluctantly agrees. With permission granted, the leader announces it is time for a proper introduction. Her disguise shatters once again as she sheds the old woman persona, revealing her true elven form in a shower of sparkles. Drake's jaw just about hits the floor. She introduces herself as Anastasia Elfandra, an elf as he can clearly see. Leaving the chief completely frozen, the new residents head toward their new home. Elsewhere, a group of kids are having a mock battle, with one declaring victory for his squad. This entire village erupts in cheers for the kids' victory, and their trainer Bobby officially declares all three of them village swordsmen. He checks with Drake for the final say, who just gives a cool nod of approval. Bobby announces they will be a vital part of the village's strength from now on. These kids are absolutely beaming, thanking both of them for the opportunity. Turns out they passed their trial by landing a single hit on Bobby during the festival. Just then, a new face approaches to congratulate them. It is a guy named Gergo, one of the new residents from the slum. Bobby explains that since Gergo is a former knight commander, he will be their new trainer. But Gergo just grabs Bobby and tries to drag him off for food, leaving the kids confused. A little later, Gergo is completely exhausted, already tapping out. He tells Bobby that those kids are way stronger than he ever expected. Apparently, his first training session was a spar, and he is barely surviving against them. Bobby then asks what happened with their tamed big worm and slime. He immediately realizes Gergo challenged their op pets and got absolutely wrecked. At the celebration feast, Bobby insists Gergo still has to train them, but the poor guy refuses. Meanwhile, the kids are just enjoying the food, with one girl offering Jake a piece of meat. They are all fired up, ready to eat big and become amazing adventurers. Elsewhere, Kevin has prepared his own incredible feast from the big worm meat, and the former slum kids stare in disbelief at the sheer amount of food. This village feast is a massive success, all thanks to the new farming method, and the kids are absolutely devouring the horn rabbit meat like there is no tomorrow. A young girl named Kate is so moved by the deliciousness she is practically in tears. This villagers comment on how well the newcomers from the slum have integrated, which makes someone wonder where their leader Anastasia has gone. A man suggests bringing her some celebratory drinks, but the kid he asks is too busy eating. Kevin realizes she is probably stuck in her disguise and cannot enjoy the party, so he and Kate decide to bring some food over to her new house. He calls out as he enters, carrying a tray with a drink and some snacks. Inside, Anastasia is back in her frail old woman form, huddled by the fire. Kevin explains it is a festival and offers her a share of the celebration, along with a special snack he brought just for her. And the moment she sees the caterpillar skewers, her disguise instantly shatters. She happily takes a bite, admitting she sometimes lets her guard down for her favorite food. This taste is so good she is in a state of pure bliss. This immediately earns Kevin another enthusiastic hug as she demands he bring them daily. Kate, watching from the doorway, is completely flabbergasted by the scene. As Kevin struggles to breathe, he agrees to bring more, but he is not the only one with a strong reaction, because Kate is now radiating some serious killer intent, which Anastasia finds amusing. Kevin realizes that with the addition of these new residents, his life just got way more dangerous. This next morning, a new day begins in the now livelier village, and deep in the forest, a herd of horned rabbits grazes peacefully. Completely oblivious to the sleeping incense Kevin has planted all around them, one of them finally catches a whiff and starts to panic, but it is way too late as the entire group just passes out on the spot. Hiding in the bushes, Kevin confirms his non-violent trap worked perfectly, peeking out over a field of snoozing, harvestable monsters. With the prep work complete, it is time to gather the villagers, so he and Drake explain the plan for today's big hunt. This three newly minted swordsmen are absolutely buzzing for their first real fight, until Kevin clarifies their job is just to collect horns from the sleeping bunnies. These kids are completely shocked, asking if there is no combat whatsoever, and their disappointment is crushing as Kevin notes how bloodthirsty they are. With the ground rules set, the villagers head out to start the collection. This operation is a massive success, filling a huge crate with valuable horns, and one of the villagers thanks Kevin for the incredible haul, but then he notices the giant black creature standing right behind our boy. Kevin casually calls it a dog while the man is internally screaming that it is a black wolf, explaining he found it alone after it got separated from its pack and just brought it home. This other kids run over, amazed by the new pet, as Kevin happily lives out his dream of owning a dog. With the new supply, the village officially opens a horned rabbit farm, and Gergo and another guy are put in charge of managing the livestock. Anastasia, still in disguise, happily takes on the role of a secluded farm manager, and with all the new work, the village is becoming a proper bustling town. They even build a dedicated factory for processing big worm meat, which provides a ton of new jobs for the women of the village. On top of that, another new industry starts up, producing textiles from caterpillar silk under an expert's guidance. But all this expansion means they need more buildings fast, and that particular job gets dumped squarely on Kevin. Drake is completely overwhelmed, begging our boy to handle the construction. For the heavy lifting, Kate has been training her magic control, apparently getting over her intense attachment to Kevin in the process. He is a little shocked by just how much stronger she has gotten, because she is now casually levitating entire stacks of logs with magic arms. She just gives a smug little smile, saying it is easy work for her now. Seeing this, Kevin's wolf gets fired up, refusing to be outdone, so he decides to carry the rest of the forest on his back. Just then, a bell rings out through the village, signaling the arrival of what seems to be a yearly visitor. That bell signals the arrival of the Morgan Trading Company, the village's annual merchant visitors, and one of the local kids is absolutely losing his mind with excitement, telling his dad to hurry up because this is the event of the year for him. His dad knows exactly what Jake is really looking forward to, though. It is the chance to see the active adventurers who guard the caravan, Solt and Betty. This adventurers greet Jake, commenting on how much he has grown, and his dad just smiles, seeing how much his son idolizes them. Jake immediately begs them for adventure stories once they are settled, and Solt happily agrees, giving the kid a friendly pat on the head. As the merchants head deeper into town, Jake and his dad watch them go, with the boy dreaming of becoming an escort guard just like them one day. His dad is super supportive, telling him he can definitely do it. For now, though, they have got to go meet up with Emily at the plaza. This merchant's arrival has transformed the village square into a bustling open-air market, and the kids are thrilled, running through the stalls to see all the new goods. Jake asks Emily if she has already decided what she wants to buy, and she explains her mom already ordered her a new dress from a merchant named Geese. Her dad watches them, remarking on how much they have both grown up. Right as Geese himself appears, holding the very dress she was talking about, Emily is ecstatic and immediately rushes off to the changing tent to try it on. Inside the changing tent, Emily nervously gets ready before stepping out to show off her brand new dress. Jake is completely stunned, blurting out that she looks incredible, and he gives her a huge, genuine smile, saying it really suits her. His honest compliment leaves her blushing and totally speechless. Her mom happily pays the merchant, thanking him for the wonderful dress. Geese then asks Jake what he is looking for, and the kid says he needs a knife. Turns out he is going to be a big brother and wants to be strong enough to protect his family. This merchant is so moved by this that he tells Jake to pick any knife he wants free of charge. So Jake immediately takes him up on the offer and proudly shows off his new blade, thanking his dad for the gift. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the now bustling village, two women are having a casual chat on a path, completely oblivious to the fact that they are being watched from the bushes. One of them suddenly gets a weird feeling and looks around, but she just brushes it off, thinking it must have been an animal. In the forest, a cloaked scout is booking it back to his base, reporting to a camp full of some very unsavory-looking bandits. This scout confirms that everyone in the village is healthy and thriving. Their leader just grins, noting they have plenty of supplies, women, and are currently being visited by merchants. This bandit leader asks about the money, and his scout confirms the village is absolutely loaded. This news earns him a truly nasty grin, as he rallies his men, promising them food, women, and riches. This whole camp roars in approval as he declares tonight's the night for a hunt. One of his men suggests hitting the merchants first, and the boss is all for it. This scout also reports seeing plenty of kids in the village, a detail that makes the bandit leader look even more unsettlingly pleased. Meanwhile, back in the completely oblivious village, Kevin is in a business meeting with Drake and the merchant Geese. Geese is practically singing our boy's praises, explaining that the grilled meat skewers were a genius idea and are selling like crazy. Kevin and Drake just listen as the merchant gushes about their success. Turns out selling the big worm meat through the trading company was a massive hit, with sales skyrocketing. They even cleverly rebranded it as smoked meat to avoid scaring off customers. Geese asks if he can expect a steady supply from the other villages as well, and Kevin confirms that the worm fertilizer will also boost their vegetable harvests. He then launches into his grand economic plan for the entire region, getting so carried away that he completely loses his audience, before realizing he's been rambling and sheepishly apologizing for the info dump. Geese is so impressed he says the company president wants to hire Kevin on the spot, but with the meeting wrapped, our boy gets ready to head home for dinner. Drake thanks him for his help, though their goodbyes are cut short, when Kevin's wolf suddenly starts barking its head off. Our boy is instantly on alert, calling out his pet's name, Taro. He whips around, trying to figure out what set the wolf off. As Taro bolts outside, still barking frantically at something in the dark, Kevin follows, completely confused by this sudden change in behavior, only to find Kate's jacket discarded on the ground. He kneels down and finds a note left behind as his wolf growls menacingly. Drake rushes out, asking what is going on, and Kevin immediately tells him to check on Jake's family, declaring an emergency. This alarm is raised, echoing through the now tense village. Back inside, the key players gather around the note Kevin found. Jake's dad is horrified, realizing Kate was the one who was taken. This kids lean in, asking what the kidnappers wrote on the paper. It is a classic ransom note: bring money to a designated spot for the hostages' return. But there is a twisted condition. A village child must deliver the ransom, or they will not guarantee her safety. Jake is absolutely furious, calling them despicable cowards. Kevin and Anastasia exchange a very serious look, already formulating a plan. Jake tries to stop the adventurers from rushing out, telling them to wait. As Kevin calmly explains, this is almost certainly a trap. He points out that if the bandits just wanted money or food, they would not need a hostage, deducing they must know the Morgan Trading Company and its guards are in town. This whole child delivery bit is just a ploy to move a small amount of money without a fight, because their real plan is to split the village's forces, luring the fighters out while a second team attacks the defenseless civilians. Drake and Kevin are both a little stunned by his own rapid-fire analysis, and our boy sheepishly admits he just read between the lines of the ransom note. Taking charge, he tells Solt and Betty to stick with Geese and asks the villagers to be on high alert. Geese is confused but agrees to the new security detail. Kevin then instructs everyone to defend their own homes, which should prevent a full-blown panic when the attack comes. This merchant is just baffled, wondering when this sleepy village became so ready for war. Drake finally asks the million-dollar question: who is actually going to rescue Kate? With a completely confident grin, Kevin volunteers to go as the child to deliver the ransom. Drake and Geese just stare, their eyes practically popping out of their skulls. They immediately protest, calling the plan way too reckless and dangerous, but Kevin just pats his wolf, saying Tara will be his guide and everything will be fine. While Geese is still freaking out, Drake just sighs, deciding to trust our boy's judgment. Kevin then kneels down to explain to Jake that while the village defends itself, Kate's life is on the line if they do not follow the kidnappers' rules. So turning to the three kids, he asks them to take on a special job as his personal escort. Kevin assigns Jimmy to guard the horned rabbits, while telling Jake and Emily their most important job is to protect their mothers. Jake's mom gives them a heartfelt plea to keep everyone safe, and the three kids salute, absolutely ready for their mission. With the home team briefed, Kevin heads out, promising Drake he will not be reckless. Though as he runs into the woods, he admits he is always getting into these messes. Just then, a torch flies through the air, signaling the start of the bandits' operation. Over at their camp, the kidnappers are relaxing by the fire with Kate tied to a tree. She is absolutely terrified, forced to listen to their vile plans. One of the goons asks the boss if he really thinks a kid is coming alone. And the leader just laughs, explaining he expects the village men to come charging in with pitchforks. Kate can only cry as she overhears the full extent of their trap. This boss lays out the master plan. Their other team will burn the village while the fighters are lured away. He boasts that his men have already infiltrated the village, ready to wipe everyone out. With a truly unhinged grin, he tells his crew to take whatever they want once the trap is sprung. He then asks a scout for a status update on the merchants and guards, only to find his men have been silently taken down around him. This leader himself is suddenly grabbed from behind, completely caught off guard. It is Kevin who calmly does a headcount of the remaining bandits, about 7 of them. This bandit leader is absolutely losing it, demanding to know who the hell just appeared behind him. Kevin gives a polite little greeting to the bandit boss, who is just now noticing all his men are already unconscious on the ground. With a smug grin, our boy remarks on the chilly weather while swirling a vortex of ice magic in his hand.